Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Is the pen mightier than the sword?
Go.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Hi everybody, welcome to It's in the Cards. Happy spring. It's the first day of spring. You wouldn't know it though with the weather playing havoc everywhere with the snow and the cold. But I wore a springy color at least for the first day of spring, but it had to be a sweater because it's cold here tonight. And we're still expecting some snow next week still, too. So we don't want to discuss that. And it's Wednesday. So, of course, we've got winds and bad weather on the way. It seems like that's been the Wednesday night routine all winter this year. Anyway, want to let everyone know that may not. This is a exciting week this week. Monday was the 2-year anniversary of Penn. So want to let everybody know that. And today is Kim's birthday, so happy birthday to Kim. And thanks to Eric for having the station and putting up with me and all the rest of us hosts every single week. and for keeping everything going and all that yous do. Kudos to yous. And happy birthday, Kim. Tonight, I have a very special, lovely guest with me. I'm honored that she was willing to come on this evening. I have Dr. Ann Scwab. And let me give you some background before I bring her on. She is world-renowned clairvoyant psychic medium, and she's a professional consultant. She's been doing it for over 55 years. When she was 6 years old, she had a near-death experience. We're going to discuss that and let her talk about it and tell us all about that. She has worked as an advisor to the White House and U.S. presidents for generations, along with law enforcement and the FBI. She's been testified law enforcement to be 98% accurate, by the way, as well. She's also an author. I want to welcome Ann Scwab. Hello, Dr. Ann. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Misha. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Well, it's truly my honor.
Everybody likes to hear a background of the guests and how we all got started and what got us into doing what we do. So let's start off with your near-death experience that you had at such a young age of 6.
Well, it actually started a little bit earlier when there was the area that we lived in. There was a missing child, and I was able to come up with some information. My mother didn't believe in having the information out there publicly, so I always worked behind the scenes. Then my sister and I went swimming in Cedar Rapids River, and we had a near drowning experience, both of us. And during that period of time, I felt like the water was rushing over me. I saw the lights coming. I saw angels and spirits and everything, and it was just really the most wonderful thing. It was so hard for me to go back to reality, and then I'd come back up for air, and then I'd go down, and I kept thinking to myself, this is going to be it. It's over. And I'm not going to see my parents again or my sister or anything like that. And the current was moving us further and further out. We were out with another young girl swimming, and my sister somehow got the strength to push us both towards, there was a boat there, and the other girl grabbed a hold of the boat, pulled herself up onto the land, and went up to her mother, and then they just took off, left us in the water. So we were going up and down in the water, and we were seeing the lights and the angels and different things like that, when suddenly this voice came to me, and it says, don't be scared. Relax. We will push you to the edge of the water. And as they were doing that, they were showing us different things of what my future was going to be and how we were going to be working with other individuals and help the world understand that we are all gifted. And in that process, they showed us some of the events and things that was going to go on in my life and how I was going to touch other people's lives in a positive manner. So we did make it up to the shoreline, and we were told not to, when the angel reappeared, we were told not to tell anyone what had occurred because they would not believe us. So it's in my actual stories, in my life stories of the books that I've written.
Well, it's more and more believable now. But back then, those things were not discussed because it would be shoved off as you were, especially at that age. You must have been dreaming, things like that, and just hushed, as you said. Now, what I find interesting with that is you said in the middle of everything going on that you were witnessing, you were also conscious, though, to the physical human aspect of coming up for air, going back under. So you were aware of both of the events then. You weren't like completely unconscious and only viewing the other side. Yes.
During that period of time, it was towards the end where we thought we were done with it. They showed us the scenes of what our future was going to be and future things around us. And they said we had an important role to play with the upcoming events. And then the next thing I knew, we were laying on the edge of the water, face down in the sand, and we turned around, and then the angel was there again.
Now, did the angel identify themselves? That it was like Gabriel or Michael or...
This angel said that it was Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael. That's a lot for a 6-year-old to take in. That's a lot for an adult to take in. And it happens to them. How you knew, even at that age, that you didn't dream it up, that it actually happened?
I've had occurrences all through my life, even as a small child. And at the age of 6, we belong to, my religion is Catholic, and so we belong to the Catholic Church. And they told us that such gifts that I had was the work of the devil and to ignore it. So when I saw the angels and stuff like that, I knew that that was not the devil.
Right, right. How? So let's go on to that since it's being brought up, because that's a discussion that comes up a lot. There's a lot of people that are afraid of psychics, mediums, tarot readers, anybody that does what you and I do. For that reason, they are still of the belief that, you know, we're all Satan worshippers and performing God knows what we're doing, that they have. Hollywood has a lot to do with that. I know the biggest thing with the tarot cards that I have to explain to people that never had them done is that the death card doesn't mean a physical death.
Yes.
Because of the Hollywood movies putting up the death card and the music. How do you answer people like that? How do you approach that?
When I talk to individuals that are set on belief of this, there's no way that you can change their mind. And I really believe in not forcing my opinion on someone else, and I respect their opinion, and I ask them in return not to force their beliefs or opinion on me. Because I believe that we were all born with these gifts and abilities, and that it's important for us to use them with understanding, responsibility, and wisdom. And if we can't do it that way, then we shouldn't be using them.
Because I know I have a friend of mine that, you know, what I do does not get discussed at all, you know, which is fine. That's supposed to be discussing her.
Do you have a liquid there, Misha, that you can drink?
I do.
Because it sounds like you need to soften your throat a little bit.
One of the things that always gets me, she's what you describe like the Bible Belt.
Yes.
And she'll say like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do about a situation until God tells me. And yet at the same time, what we do is of the devil. And they don't want to hear that, no, I get my information from God the same place you do. It's just, worded with different terms or whatever, but for whatever, and that's something that always just irks me and drives me nuts. Why is it okay for one and not okay for us? Why? It just aggravates me with that.
I really find that a lot of people, what the situation is everybody has their own beliefs, and there's many ways to path of God, whether you're a Catholic, whether you're a Protestant, whether you're even an atheist. There's many paths. And individuals need to respect and accept that there's going to be other people with views and things. And in your situation, what you were just discussing, the individual picking up a Bible and reading something of that, I tell my clients, I pick up a Bible and I will ask for guidance and direction and pray on the Bible and then open it up and put my finger on a certain passage, and that directs me. That's the guidance and direction. But the psychic gifts and abilities is a development that we all have, whether you call it gut instincts, women's intuitive abilities. It's all part of it. We use it every day in life. And if we don't listen to it, then we go through experiences and learning lessons, which keeps us stuck in our situations where we're not advancing in life or gaining in life.
Yes. Now, do you find it harder to get information when it personally pertains to you as opposed to others?
I do in some cases, but not in all. If I've, for instance, had a really rough day and I haven't done my meditations like I normally do, and I'm really exhausted, then I find that I'm not as close to it. I'm too close to it, and I'm not reading it correctly. But But then there's other times, like when I had text you and let you know that I had this one vision, and I was concerned about what was going to happen on this show. And you gave me some information telling me different things. And you thought that was interesting that I kind of hit on that. And it was an accurate type of thing. That's what I usually do. And when something like that comes, I have to have the information from the other individual in order to make sure it's like a feedback or a confirmation of the situation. And I think I really appreciate you when you did that, because that's what I ask from my clients, is feedback or confirmation that I'm it's regarding them in the situation.
Right. Now, how do you get your information? Some are clairaudient, clairescence. I tend not to get.
I have all of the abilities, and I've worked very hard to develop them. And everyone, as I said, has these abilities, but not everyone takes and develop them to a strong point. So I can touch articles and pick up information. I can look at documents, and some of my clients are like legal people. They need me to review a case, and if there's a problem there. I've had individuals that give me pictures of people that they're looking for and things like that. I even had one individual call up and wanted to know if I could give them an actual phone number and address of the individual they haven't seen for 10 years. And it doesn't work that way.
You have the lottery numbers too?
That's what they've asked me, yes. And I told him that I can't do the lottery numbers or stocks. I even had this one guy wanting me to do stock options and tell him which way the market's going to go and everything. And I says, I can tell you which way the market's going to go, but I can't individualize it for the stocks or the lottery simply because it's considered self-gain, whether it's me giving you the information, because I'm still involved and it disrupts my gifts and abilities because it's self-gain. And that's something I can't do.
When were you seeing people from the other side that have crossed over? Prior to your near-death experience?
Yes, it was age 4. I actually started seeing and talking to individuals on the other side and angels as well. But it was only through the drowning experience that I actually was aware that this was an ordinary thing. This was a regular thing, and that I wasn't a freak, or there wasn't something seriously sickness wrong with me.
Right. Does it run in your family?
We've had 6 generations of women psychics. My mother was one. Back in those days, they did not advertise it because it was either against the law, or people frowned on it or made fun of them, or they became so afraid of them they wouldn't do it. And I guess the reason I was told to come forward was basically to help individuals understand that this is not to help bring information out, that this is not, we're not all bad psychics or frauds, that some of us actually use our gifts and abilities to make a difference. And there's some very good, honest psychics out there. And but there are also some, because of the economy, and it gets worse every time the economy comes around, that there are going to be some fraud scammers. And you just have to trust your own instincts on this. If it doesn't sound good or sound right, then you got to know that that's not the one for you to connect with.
I also advise a lot that, if they're trying to scare you.
Yes, or put pressure on you and tell you all these negative things are going to happen to you. I always teach that in my class about one individual that had told this young 18-year-old high school student that if she didn't keep coming back to her, that she was going to, and paying her large amounts of money, that all this negative stuff was going to happen to her, and she was going to be in an automobile accident, be pregnant, and her boyfriend that was riding with her was going to be permanently and totally disabled from the neck down. And this girl was really upset.
Yeah.
And this individual kept telling her this stuff. And, and that's the negative part that I'm talking about for psychics and the frauds that we talk about. But it gives the wrong impression of what the real psychics are. And sure, you got the past ideas from the movies, like you say, of the tarot cards and the demons, and everybody's possessed. And the part that I always loved about that was when they had the floating tables and all that stuff. That usually doesn't happen unless it's somebody that really, really wants to demonstrate something like that. But usually spirits don't do that. They will send gusts of wind, or light candles will go out, or things like that, but it's not really, the table will suddenly blow up unless it's more of a poltergeist situation.
Right. What is your view, Rose, on things like poltergeists and demons? Do you believe they even exist, or that they're just, if you were grumpy when you were living, you're grumpy when you crossed over?
That's part of it there, but there are poltergeists, and there are not so much demons per se, but people that have died with a lot of negativity in them or anger, and that causes the people to think that there are evil spirits out there and things. If they're angry and negative in life and they pass over and they refuse to let go of that, then that can cause that. And I was watching the celebrity ghost stories that they had on TV, and I found that fascinating to watch that program simply because it showed the different types of individuals that had passed over, some very loving, some to the point where they didn't want to leave, and some where they had the people that were in the house had to end up moving out because the people didn't want them there. It was their property. So it's just like anybody in life today. When people look at people that have passed over, as we call it, people saying going to heaven and stuff like that, it's actually a different dimension. If anybody's ever seen the movie, and I'm sure you all have seen Harry Potter with that invisible cloak that he has, and he's looking through that invisible sheer material out. If we just lift that sheer material up and actually see, we can actually open up our eyes and see the actual dimension of the other world. And that's what you see.
That's a fantastic description. I love that. That is a fantastic explanation and description. I love that. I'm going to use that.
You're more than welcome to. You will also find that when people say that they know they've had gifts and abilities and everything, and they've had individuals say, well, you can't use your gifts and abilities unless you come to me, that's wrong. Everybody has the gifts and abilities, and you can go to anyone, even yourself, if you need confirmation. And what I tell people is that if you feel like we all can see and talk to the dead, we are all different forms of empathic, we all have sensitivity to different things, we all have precognitive abilities, we all have past abilities of seeing our past lives and things like that. It just depends upon whether we want to, whether we lift that veil up, and whether or not we are ready for it. Sometimes some of the people that I work with are overpowered by the information that comes through, and then they get kind of scared. So you have to tell them that you want the information to come at your pace and is a little bit slower so that you can understand and approach it in that manner.
Right. And if there's also things where, maybe hearing is fine, which is what I do. Seeing, I think a long time ago, it was half joking, half true. I don't want to ever see. Just don't show yourself. So to this day, I don't see them with my eyes. When I am doing investigations myself, I'll know over there or in the other room. I'll be able to describe the sex, the age, what the person's wearing, usually. but it's not with a visual, I see them. It's a knowing. And if I'm taking pictures, I'll just instinctively, not because I saw a shadow or movement or anything, I'll just get the camera and aim and start clicking. And more than not, in at least one of the frames of the pictures, there's something there. So, yes, we have control of what we do and don't do, what we want to be, given to us, what we don't want to be doing. How did you learn, turn off switch?
I don't turn it off, but I learn to control it, because if you turn it off, it ends up being regressed, and then it builds up to the point that you become more agitated and sick and ill unless you share it or write it down or release it in some manner. And that's why it's very important for me to do meditations and also writing journals.
One of the things that you were saying when we were discussing the things with Hollywood and things like that, and about something, I forget what it is exactly that you said, but it brought on an additional question towards that. The question is, what do you say to people? I hear this all the time. Your gifts came from God, so you have no business charging. I know my answer, and the regular viewers have heard this over and over. Every gift comes from God, whether you're an accountant, a doctor, a singer,
an actor, a singer, a lawyer, whatever. They charge fees. Everyone is gifted. In the creative, there comes creativity, spirituality, and psychic abilities. And when people say that you shouldn't charge because they're God-given gifts, how is an individual supposed to make a living? Are all the doctors and attorneys going to give up their earnings and living because they have gifts and abilities where they're taking and using it? What about our President of the United States and our senators and representatives? Are they going to give up earning a living because they are representing us and they have gifts and abilities that they've been able to tune in to some of these problems? The answer is going to be no. We pay for entertainment, for going to see actors at theaters and shows, and going for singers and things like that. But why should we be singled out as psychics or individuals that have gifts and abilities that we should offer for free? And that, to me, is taking the individual, treating them with very little respect and acceptance, as well as expecting and demanding free service. We have to make a living as well as anyone else. In my situation, I can't work another job. I've had a permanent disability that makes it very difficult for that. And I was bedridden in a wheelchair. So I overcame those, but I still have that disability. And I can't hold down a regular job. And there's individuals that say, oh, you don't look like you had a disability. What does a disabled person look like? Do we all have to run around in crutches and canes and everything like that? We all have to work at what we achieve best. And that's why I've worked so hard to bring psychic abilities and a better understanding and using my gifts to make a difference. And talking publicly that there is not a sin, is not wrong. We are here to use our gifts. And my gifts have been used by many individuals. And when you introduced me for the White House and law enforcement, that's all volunteer work. I don't get paid for that. So I make my living through helping other individuals. I do mentoring, I teach classes and different things like that.
I'm sure there's people out curious. How did you get involved? I mean, there's, like you said, there's plenty of psychics. Some are more known than others. Some do it professionally full-time, others part-time, others just as a hobby. How did you get involved with the White House? And police and the FBI. How did that come about for you? Not everybody gets, well known as well as you are, and certainly not everybody gets to work with the police or contacted by those people.
Well, in my situation, I did a lot of volunteer work for them. So when I see something going on in my visions or insights, I immediately would give it to a contact that I could trust. Now, during the time, my greatest asset was working behind the scenes, and when I'd have people calling me for these shows for me to do a special TV program or something, I had given my word about confidentiality. So I was not able to do something like that with these shows. And they go, well, in the future, don't sign confidentiality contracts and don't give your word and stuff like that. And that's how I built my business, was through keeping that confidential. And when I worked with the White House, I was very grateful for the opportunity of each United States president, regardless of political parties, that I've had this information and I shared it with them, and even law enforcement, because I don't feel I should be holding this stuff back. I share it both with the Republican Party, the Independent, the Democratic Party. I share it with all law enforcement, and it's up to them to do what they will with it. And if they choose to ignore it and they drop the ball, that's their responsibility. Then it falls back on them.
That's it's very brave in some ways to even let people know that we do what we do. But to let the police department know, the police department, for the most part, they're not, the majority of them aren't psychic friendly.
That is true. And the thing is that I've had several situations where I've called in and I've tried to talk to someone. I believe it's the Columbine massacre, and I called the FBI and tried to give them some information. And this guy treated me just like I was a total nutcase. But they ended up using the information, and it did help the situation where I said, this is going to be happening, and that you need to understand that these guys are going to try to come out with the students with raincoats on, or pretend to be part of the students rushing out of the backside of the Columbine. And they ended up following through with that process, and they caught them as they were coming out, and they headed back in, and that's one of the things that I had seen.
So do you ever get, along with you getting the visions and things like that, do you get called in by police departments, say if there's a missing person, to see if you're able to pick up where the missing person can be located, or if they've crossed over? Do you get contacted for things like that?
Yes, I do. But again, it's kind of strictly confidential on that basis. Some people, like I said, work with you and some don't, and some believe in gifts and abilities. But I've also been given the comment by some, when you've shared it with people that aren't as familiar with psychics working, what people have to understand is psychics have been working with the government since way back in Eisenhower's time. And the reason that the law enforcement and stuff has a problem working with psychics now is because that cases can be thrown outside of court. There was a well-known psychic that was, we all know that she had a series on TV, and she worked with the prosecuting attorney in that one, Alice Dubois, and she was Ellison Dubois, and she was really good in her work. And then they made a big deal about it and just blew it way out of proportion. And so that made it more difficult for individuals to work. But psychics are used behind the scenes in a lot of stuff. And then you'll find that some psychics crave the publicity. And so then somehow the media is all involved, and it gets way blown out of proportion. And the rest of us that work behind the scenes are trying to make a difference. then it makes it difficult and harder to be credible.
You don't need to be, I'm not asking, confidentialities to be broken, just how you work so the listeners and the viewers understand. You don't need to be at the site of where the person was last seen, or if it's a known abduction, the spot where the abduction took place, to be able to tune into being able to help out in finding the person.
No, I have what they call gifts and abilities that are, if you work really hard on them, they're called remote viewing. But I do like to be at the place if it is necessary, because it also helps pick up the energy level. I can give an example of one of the visions I had. It was at an actual individual that had been kidnapped, and she had been buried and put in a box alive, and she was buried in the ground. And in the vision, I became her, and I was scratching on the box trying to get out. And I was screaming, and nobody was coming. And I felt so upset after that vision, because I wasn't getting enough information to be able to locate the individual. But we did find the individual, and unfortunately, it was too late. But it stays with you with your gifts and abilities. You have to understand, for our viewers, it comes with a price. There is good with the bad, and you have to learn to be able to work with both.
That answers my next question, or maybe it doesn't. I was going to ask, when you are, say, trying to tune into an abduction, do you just see it as if you're watching a movie playing out, or do you try to connect to the abductor or the abductee, or again stay neutral and view it and watch it?
I've become an observer and sometimes a participant. It depends upon the actual situation. I have been an actual participant where I've been the individual, or standing back and being an observer. So both ways are hard for me, simply because you want to stop the situation from occurring, and you don't want somebody to be violently injured or hurt or killed. But at the same time, you have to learn to be able to set yourself apart from that so that you can get clearly the information. And when you're doing that, in the process of doing that, it's important for you to look at the situation and view it. And that's why you look at learning to use visualization. The more you focus and learn visualization of being able to memorize things around you, like, for instance, a license plate of a car driving by you, or the make and model of the car, things like that, that will be more beneficial to you, so that you have something to relay back to law enforcement or whatever.
One of the things I imagine is harder, we'll discuss this quick and then we'll go to a break, is like the incident you described with the girl that was buried alive. When the situation doesn't turn out with a happy ending. The self-beating up of, why wasn't this information given to me sooner in enough time to save the person? Why do we have these abilities if we're getting to the people too late? I hear that a lot from people asking that question, wanting to develop their own abilities that they know they have, but they're afraid of that exact scenario occurring. You've been doing it a lot of years now to know how to separate from all that and have an acceptance. What would your advice be to people for that?
Okay, it's important for people to understand that you can't, God or our Creator, regardless of what faith you are, When you're developing your gifts and abilities, you have to understand we're not always shown everything. We're not the creator. We're not God. And sometimes in situations, there are blockages that are coming through, not from us or from their information, but unwanted things that come through that maybe somebody else is causing a problem that may block the information, or you may hand them the information, and like through all the red tape that has to go down, somebody drops the ball and it doesn't get done correctly. Okay? There was one psychic that gave information that ended up in a great big huge media frenzy about all these dead bodies that were supposed to be around this ranch somewhere, and they went out there and she had described the inside of the house, and then there were supposed to be bodies, so they were digging around the place and there was nothing found there. And then the media just tore it apart. So a lot of instances, sometimes the information's treated not serious enough, and other times there's the red tape that goes through, and the people handling it, if they don't believe in it, then the situation, and then if you don't get all the information, it's not that you're not trying, it's just the circumstances are beyond what you're supposed to receive.
On that note, we're going to take a break, and I want to let the listeners know that when we return, we will have the phone lines open to take your calls. When we come back, I'll run down the rules for that when we get back. Don't go anywhere.
I have one resident that barely opened her eyes. She didn't respond. As much as I tried, I knew her for 2 years. No matter what I tried, massage wouldn't work, nothing worked. But when we got introduced to the iPods and the family told me the things that she liked, it was amazing once we put the iPod on her. She started shaking her feet. She started moving her head. Her son was just amazed. Okay, can we stop? Because now I'm getting all I'm seeing her all over again.
Hi, Papa. Hi, Papa.
Huh?
How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm fine. Wait.
Who am I?
I don't know. Wait a minute. I don't know.
Okay, it's Cherry. How long has he been in the nursing home? Approximately 10 years. He was having seizures, and my mother couldn't handle him at home. Of course, it affected me greatly because he was always, fun-loving, singing, every occasion he would come out with a song, no matter where he was. I remember as a child, he used to walk us down the street, me and my brother, and he would stop and do Singing in the Rain. He would have us jumping and swinging around poles. He was, he was good. He was always into music, always loved singing, dancing.
His name is Henry Dreyer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking more or less for religious music for him.
Okay.
Because he enjoys music and he always quoting the Bible. So I'd rather have that for him.
We first see Henry inert, maybe depressed, unresponsive, and almost unalive.
Henry.
Yeah?
Henry.
Yes, y'all.
I found your music. You want your music now?
What do you want me?
Let's try your music, okay? And then you tell me if it's too loud or not.
Then he is given an iPod containing, we know, his favorite music. And immediately he lights up. His face assumes expression, his eyes open wide. He starts to sing and to rock and to move his arms, and he's being animated by the music.
And he used to always sit on the unit with his head like this. He didn't really talk to much people. And then when I introduced the music to him, this is his reaction ever since.
The philosopher Kant once called music the quickening art, and Henry is being quickened, he's being brought to life.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the music for 1 second, okay? Just to ask you a few questions. Okay? I'm going to give it back to you.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
The effect of this doesn't stop, because when the headphones are taken off, Henry, normally mute and virtually unable to answer the simplest yes or no questions, is quite voluble.
Henry,
Yeah.
do you like the iPod? Do you like the music you're hearing?
Yes.
Tell me about your music.
Well, I don't have none, I mean.
Do you like music?
Yeah, I'm crazy about music. You play beautiful music, beautiful sound. Beautiful.
Did you play music when you were, did you like music when you were young?
Yes, I went to big dances and things.
What was your favorite music when you were young?
Well, I guess, well, Cab Calloway was my #1 band guy. I like it.
What's your favorite Cab Calloway song?
Oh, I'll be home there for Christmas. Oh, you can count and plan on me with plenty of snow, mistletoe, present wrapped around your tree. Ow!
So in some sense, Henry is restored to himself. He has remembered who he is, and he's reacquired his identity for a while through the power of music.
What does music do to you?
Give me the feeling of love. No man. Figure right now the world need to come into music, singing. You got beautiful music here. Beautiful, oh, lovely. And I feel the band of love, the dream. The Lord came to me, made me holy. I'm a holy man. So he gave me this sound. I'll just say, I meet you. Let me see. Rosalie, won't you love me? Rosalie, won't you be sweet and kind?
With this beautiful new technology.
Hi, welcome back to It's in the Cards. Joining me tonight is the lovely Dr. Ann Scwab. We've been talking prior to the break about her near-death experience that she had when she was 6 years old, and her mediumship abilities and her work with the police. We're going to have the phone lines opened as well for the second half of the show. If you're calling in, the regulars know the rules, but for you newbies that are joining us this evening for the first time, welcome. I want to just let you know that we don't have the ability to put you on hold. So if we are on with a caller and you're wanting to call in, please hold off until the current caller is through and hangs up, and then you can call in. Also, with readings, this is standard on the show because of time-wise and abilities being, we want to get people in as much as possible that want it. We need it kept short. We need specific questions if you're calling in for reading. It can't be just a general, what's going on, what are you getting for me? We have to have a specific question. Also, we aren't having the phone lines open just for readings. If you have a question yourself for Dr. Rose that you'd like to ask, that maybe you're wondering about your own abilities or things like that, or how to get started, or any question for whatsoever aside from a reading, feel free and call us with those questions as well. Now's your chance. With that said, I want to discuss I want to make mention also, just so people know, you do have books that you have out which can be found on your website. Your website is angelicinspirations.com, and the books that are available can be seen and found and purchased through your website, roseanneschwab.com. And the list of the books and the descriptions are there, and that's where they can be ordered. They're not available on any of the sites or the stores, just through the website. So we want to specify that to the viewers.
I'm going to stop you here, Misha.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a question. How do you take and prepare people for your readings?
How do I prepare people for readings? Well, if they're new to me, I want to make sure that, even if they've had a tarot reading in the past with people, that they are fully with the understanding and knowledge the death card doesn't mean a physical death. That's a number one thing people are afraid of. I'm shuffling and I hear them with, no death card, please, no death card, not the death card. So that's the one of the first things that I explain to them. I let them also know that when they get a reading from me, if they've had them in the past, I read differently than anybody they might have gotten a reading from. Usually you see like the Celtic cross spread being done by readers. That's a common one. Or, fancy other spreads laid out for effect. I don't do that. I personalize each and every reading for the individual, for their question, and for the information that's needed to best help them. And tarot isn't about fortune telling. I let that be known too, because somebody hears that I do it, or, wanting to know about it. They're like, so you can tell me all about my future and everything that's going to happen. That's not what it's about. It's more advising and guidance for spiritual growth. Does it do fortune telling? I hate that term. What I do is look at a situation with what's going on currently and what the likely outcome will be if a certain path is followed.
Now, when I've had a reading, what I find interesting is, and I'm sure you've had this come across, where somebody has called up or in-person session where they say, so-and-so has left me. Can you force them to come back to me? Can you make them love me again? How does that work for you?
You cannot mess with people's free will. And I always bring up the expression, because they were around for a reason, watch what you wish for. Because you think, the reasons you broke up the first time were horrendous. If the person does come back, just wait. And along those lines, Rose, which is what I wanted to discuss with you for the viewers out there, the big thing with the breakups, following that I hear all the time, and I guess you do too, but they were my soulmate. We were so connected. I know that we're soulmates. And we belong together. And then I explain the soulmate scenario, that the connection is there. It's very well probable you did know each other from a past life, and that's what the connection is. Your souls are recognizing one another, but a soulmate doesn't mean the happily ever after, and everybody can be a soulmate. It doesn't just mean a significant other, and we have multiple soulmates in our lives.
That is true. And when we do have soulmates, the best way I like to explain it is a soulmate is an individual that we in the spirit form as a soul before coming down to earth have decided to work with willingly to go through experiences and learning lessons. We've worked well with them in the past, And so then we work well with them in this lifetime. So the individual can be a cousin, a brother, sister, a mother, father, a husband, even a business associate. And the thing that we have to look at is, why were they brought into our lives? To help us experience things and understand them and go through these learning lessons and experiences. And the difference about that is that in the situation with a twin soul is totally different than soulmates. People have the misconception that soulmates are the actual connection to their soul and that they're the love of their life type thing. And there's a difference between soulmates and what we call twin souls / twin flames. And the twin souls, twin flames are basically individuals. The best way I can explain it as being a Catholic is that God made Adam. Adam was both male and female, being androgynous. And God took rib from Adam, made Eve, and took the female parts from Adam. Now, when we talk about twin souls, twin flames being the counterpart, that is what a lot of people say. But my best way of saying about twin souls and twin flames is the fact that it's someone that you get along well with, that encourages you to be better than you would ever be on your own. They support you and encourage you, and that's a twin soul, twin flame. And we don't always run into them. Sometimes in another life, in a lifetime, they may choose to go through learning lessons and experiences. So, but most of the time in our lifetimes, our paths will cross, but that doesn't mean we're always going to be married to them.
Exactly. And so many people get caught up in that and with the wrong impressions. That's the number one biggest issue, I think. And it's hard for people to understand, because especially if they're questioning us about it right at a reading, because their heart's breaking over the breakup, over not seeing the person, and they don't want to hear the explanation like you just gave. They want it to be the fairy tale.
And a lot of individuals that I've run across, I would say that some of them have been wanting to have a yes psychic. And the difference between my gifts and yours is that you have very similar gifts to mine, but you use yours in a different way by using tarot cards. In mine, I just use the visions and insights without the cards. So we're both very gifted, but there's different approaches to the psychic abilities.
Yes. And I get a lot of the information prior without the cards. It's gotten to the point for me that the cards just verify, and because I tuned into the cards prior to my natural psychic abilities. If we want to, throw terms out there, I was always psychic. I hate the word psychic, actually, because of all the different connotations and, beliefs of what that means. I just never knew that's what it was. To me, it was I always naturally gave advice to people. I went to a Catholic all-girls high school. Didn't really have friends, but, they'd all need advice over something going on, usually boyfriend related, and they hunted me down to find me. And I wasn't using cards back, and I would just, casual conversation, and I would think after they were done, what is wrong with them? That was simple. What do they need advice? And I never got it. I didn't understand, they'd tell me you should go to college and be a psychiatrist or counseling of some sort. You're fat. How do you know that? To me, it was common sense. I didn't see it as anything extra, ability-wise.
Right. And that happens to all of us. And what's important for us to understand is that we, as I said before, and I will repeat it again, is that we are all gifted. And how we choose to use it, whether it's insights, whether it's visions or whether, like for instance, when you say you use the tarot cards, but you get the information beforehand, I think that is wonderful. I really do. I like the idea of the tarot cards, but I've never gotten into it and don't really understand them. And that's why I don't use any props or anything. But I feel that tarot cards are very interesting and different, unique type of way of doing things.
What they do is, for me, they give me the additional information. Psychically, I'll get the general, okay, I'll know before they say anything, this is a breakup, or this is a question regarding a marriage, or this is work related, and yeah, there's something sneaky going on with somebody. The in-depth details is what the tarot cards give me, along with the confirmation of what I got. You do teaching as well. What is the biggest hurdle? I was going to say problem, but I don't want to throw that out there. The biggest hurdle for people to overcome.
The biggest hurdle to overcome is people's impression of what a psychic is. As you were saying, there's such connotations connected to the word psychic that is evil or that's fraud and things like that. And one day I sat down and there was over 150 different names connected to the word psychic that wasn't using the word psychic. And I'm one of these individuals that's trying to change what the name means and the meaning behind it. So I'm going to use the word psychic. So I was believing that we can change the world, and people that are honest and true and using their gifts and abilities with integrity, honesty, and ethics can make a big difference in the world. You don't have to be connected to law enforcement. You don't have to be an advisor to them or to the President of the United States. You don't have to do things like what we're doing. You can use your gifts and abilities in your personal life as well as your professional life every single day. You may suddenly decide while you're driving a car to go down a different path or a different roadway that you normally would take, not using your psychic abilities. Maybe you're walking down the street and suddenly you decide not to go the normal path you walk and you decide to change that. And you go 2 blocks over, or maybe you take a different route. That could be because you were given intuition to tell you not to take that path. That's happened to one of the clients that I had, where they actually changed their route, and they were glad they did because an individual had been mugged there just a few minutes before they had come, and they would have been killed instantly.
Yeah. And we don't even realize it. We're so busy fuming and in a rush to get where we're going, and complaining and griping because the road's closed or traffic or whatever the case might be, that we don't even stop and think that perhaps we ran late in the morning because if we were on time, that accident that you saw on the way in might have been you.
And that's true. That is so true.
The phone number is up on the screen for phone calls. Feel free and call in. What, if you have, would you say there's one ability that's easier to learn or tune into than another?
I would say that we first begin with our gifts and abilities of sensing things. You can sense sometimes when the phone is going to ring. If you're close to someone, you will sometimes finish their sentence. That's the easiest part. The hardest part is understanding the gifts and abilities we have. Like, we are all empathic. A lot of people don't understand what empathic means. Being empathic means you're sensitive not just to spirits around you, but the positive or negative energy that's around you. Have you ever gone to a grocery store, gone in a good mood, and then suddenly you're in there and you're becoming angry, and you come out and you're really angry, and you don't understand why you're suddenly angry, because you went in there in a good mood. That basically is the energy, the negative energy or anger that you're picking up. That is what it is. That's what being sensitive is. It's like being a sponge. You're absorbing good, clean water or dirty, messy water. And you have to learn to be able to sort through that and understand what these gifts and abilities are.
Yes. And large crowds. Especially if for an empath. Large crowds, because you're picking up, like you said, anger, you're picking up everybody's. Tends to, I don't know, makes you feel lightheaded. I don't want to say dizzy because people think right away the room's but almost like claustrophobic or the areas caving in, just this overwhelming tightness of, I need air, I gotta breathe.
That's so true. And basically when it happens to me is that I feel totally everybody's energy on me, and I feel overweighted, overwhelmed, and then I'm totally exhausted because of all the energy that is there, the different personalities of energies, the good energies, the bad energies. But one thing that came to my mind when we were talking about this, of people always approaching you for a reading and things like that, every time they find out I'm a psychic, every event that I've been at, if I'm being a judge at Miss US pageant or been to some other event or something like that, I keep it quiet what my background is. And as soon as they find out, there are long lines of individuals waiting to talk to me, of the staff and the people that I'm working with, about their situations. So, it's I'm happy to share my gifts and abilities that way. But I just tell people straight out that I can't afford to do the free reading stuff. I do that for very special people, and I started out my business that way, but I have to be able to charge fees, and I ask everybody to please respect that we're not here doing this for free. We're trying to answer questions on live video and stuff for individuals to give them give them a demonstration. But that doesn't mean that they're supposed to call us on our phone line and say, hey, I heard you on the Skype, or I saw you on the video or YouTube, and I'm calling for my free reading session. And to me, that's a little bit late. So you guys, if you're interested in calling now, you better call in, because after the show's over with, it's too late.
Get it while you can. A few regulars are aware as well. I get the emails, or they see me on Facebook ask, I have something going on, I need a reading, and my answer, it might seem rude and things, but my answer is, here's my website. When I'm designated times when I am set up to do it for free, that's when I do it. To expect it all the time it's not considerate, or not being understanding of the energy that's involved either. I know that I also give chances for charities when there's fundraisers going on, for raffles, for people to buy raffle tickets. I do that. I do events in the area for fundraisers. And when I get asked as well, one time, it was funny. I have an article that I wrote. It was like I was channeling when I wrote it. It was a rough week. It seemed like everybody and their brother was coming out. All over the place, wherever I went, on Facebook, online, in forums. I don't understand this business of why you people don't work for free. And it blurted out of my mouth to somebody, and I said, well, why should we work for free? And they said, your gifts came from God, like we were discussing earlier. And it came out of my mouth out of nowhere. I didn't even think about it. I looked at them and I said, well, then I guess your gifts came from hell. And they
Good explanation.
And they got silent, and so did I, because I was, wow, that's a good point. Where did that come from? So I ended up sitting down at the computer, and I typed this article. I titled it, My Gifts Came from God, Yours Came from Hell. And got your attention now, didn't I? And I just wrote in it, the explanations, and I even said in the article, I can't believe that I have to explain the fact that even though we're psychic, we have bills to pay. This isn't Survivor, where we're living in a tent, hunting for our own food or picking it off of whatever trees and berry bushes are around. But yeah, I did
not mention. Sorry, Misha, you had mentioned about your channeling. How do you explain it to your viewers about your channeling? How you channel?
I don't, because I really don't know when it just comes out of the blue. And for me, it's usually when I go to write something, whether it's a important deck review or an important article that I am directed with that little voice in my ear coming up with the article idea. You need to do an article on this. I just sit there and I'm typing and it just comes. I don't even really have to go back and edit with corrections. And then when it's done, I know it's done, and I look at it, and I'm reading it, and I know I wrote it, but it's that I didn't. I sit there and I'm reading, I'm like, that's pretty darn good. Who wrote that?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's how I teach my classes. Is I tell them to sit down with a pencil and paper and start out by putting down whatever name that they want to write to. Like, for instance, Archangel Michael. And first they do a meditation before they start doing the writing. And then pick up the pencil and put Archangel Michael and then write down a whole bunch of questions and different things like that. Then I tell them to set the pencil down, turn the page, and put your name at the top. Then sit there for just a second, deep breathe in and out, long inhales and long exhales, and then allow the energy of channeling to flow through you and write things down. And don't watch what you're writing per se. Watch how, like the spelling or the sentence structure or anything like that, because once you do that, that stops the natural flow of the channeling. So you allow it that way. You don't correct it. Whoever's channeling through you, whether it's angels, whether it's people that passed on, there are bad spellers, but they're using your words and your thoughts, but it'll be worded differently than you would normally write it. And that's what you were just talking about.
Yes, the wording is different when I go back and read it. We're going to be running out of time soon. Time goes by, doesn't it? I'll have to have you on again.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But before we end up having to end the evening, you also do healings, correct? Reiki?
Correct. Yes.
Things like that. Let's discuss that a little bit with the time that we have left.
Well, in the process of channeling, you also have the channeling of healing energy. And what is important to do is understand that everybody has this gift ability. And if you want to develop this gift ability, start out with family members by giving them a massage. Learn and read all the information you can on channeling healing energy, and Reiki and reflexology, and understand all those procedures. And in that way, when you're doing that, you can also do it on animals and pets and stuff. And my favorite thing is when you're channeling healing energy, to use the Reiki professional way of doing things. And that's holding your hand over the spot and allowing the angels or the spirit guide or the animal guide to direct your hands to whatever area that you can sense on that individual or that pet that seems to need your hand to stop at just right above. And that energy that comes out of your hands goes down into the individual's body or the animal's body or whichever you're doing it in. It's just like a massage person or deep tissue massage and things like that, but it does not take the place of an actual medical doctor. And I must stress that because a lot of people think channeling healing energy is going to correct cancer and things like that. It will help realign the body and the chakras and things like that. And that's what basically it is. It's not a healing technique where you can go up to someone and suddenly their cancer is going to be gone. So people have a misconception of that too, unless you are an actual healer, and that is very rare in this date and time.
I have a question. Actually, this is for the viewer that is in the chat that tried to call into us actually, but they are in the midst of the high winds right before their snowstorms. So they were having a problem calling in and getting through. And before I ask his question that he posed into the chat room, I'm wondering, because right at the same time he mentioned the issue of calling in and we were discussing the healing, I got a massive thing going on in my head, and I'm wondering, Jay, do you by any chance right now currently have a headache or a migraine? Because I'm all of a sudden, my head just is weird. He posed his question in the chat room. Well, I'm waiting to see his response. Yes, he does. Okay, it's you. I'm picking up then. Okay, I needed to confirm where it was coming from so that, you know, what I know whose it is so it can come off of me and I can release it. So thank you for confirming that, Jay. He has a question, and his question is, been seeing and hearing spirits since childhood. Age 53, claims no title, been on investigations with groups, don't consider himself a hunter because spirits come to him. How can he expand to where he can communicate?
Communication, what I feel is the strongest point is going to be here at his level is to keep exercising and his gifts and abilities. The spirits are all around you, and all you have to do is talk to them like Misha and I are talking, even though we're at a distance and we're talking by computer right now. The spirit is talking to you, and you'll be able to hear them, even though it's kind of like the distance is between the two of us. You have to lift up the veil and allow them to talk to you, whether it's you're actually hearing them or whether it's the actual writing that we were talking about previously, allowing them to communicate with you through pencil and paper. They can also communicate with you through your visions at night. They are called what we call dream visions. They can communicate with you with certain words. You can communicate with them just talking to them. I have a significant other that had passed away, and he's with me every single day, and I talk to him, and he lets me know that he's here. He will make signs. Something will move, something will knock over, or I'll suddenly get this warm feeling of love or understanding. There's various different ways, but you have to be able not to get frustrated by it if you're not picking it up right away, because you can block yourself and sabotage your own efforts. You just have to be patient and it will open up for you, but keep exercising and meditating and communicating, because before you know it, wham, it's going to happen.
Yeah, wham, you gave me your headache, Jay.
That's talking about the telepathic areas, that as we start to develop our gifts and abilities, they get stronger and stronger. And that's why Misha's feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, because he sent sudden information to you telepathically.
Right.
And that's why you have the headache, because it was overwhelming, because you were open to it.
And it's, I cringe at even describing it as a headache, because it's borderline headache and just feeling dizzy, but not even just
right.
I've got the headache there, but being
it's a sudden knowledge came through to you. Yes. That he needed to connect with you, but at the same time, it was overpowering and a little bit exhausting, but you weren't picking up exactly everything that he wanted, but you knew somebody that he was there and he needed you.
Right, right. And he says thank you very much to you.
Well, thank you.
You can't see him in the chat room. And he's apologizing for giving me the headache. Not a problem at all, Jay. It's fine.
Jay, it's important, Jay, for you to understand that that is normal. That does happen when you're using telepathic abilities. That's a good sign for you. That means your gifts and abilities are strong. Just hang in there and keep working on it. And don't be embarrassed if you do give someone what we call a headache. It's not that you're being painful or causing problems. It's just not everybody's gifts and abilities are as developed as yours.
They just joked in the chat that him and his wife are sweet people, and that his headaches aren't given to just anybody.
That is cute. I did want to explain about healings. One other thing was forced healings. A lot of people say, I want to help heal my son or my husband or something like that. When we're talking about healings, there's just so much that you can do. Healings are supposed to be positive energy flow. And when you're sometimes forced healings are brought in simply to help people understand. The best way to explain forced healings is if you're driving a car and you're going down a road and it's at night and it's dark outside, you've got your headlights on, and the individual is your husband or your son, whoever is supposed to be needing the head healing, and you're the passenger in the vehicle. You come to this roadway and suddenly there's a detour sign up there, and you say, oh, you need to go follow the detour, and they say, no, I'm going to go right through. Well, they end up getting stuck somewhere. Say they end up being in a road construction where there's a lot of sand, and their car gets stuck in that sand, and the wheels are spinning around, so they have you get out and try to push the car. Well, you try to push the car, but it goes nowhere because it's still spinning and spinning. It means they're going to have a semi-truck or something come along and jar them loose in that whatever problem or whatever healing they need to get them to move forward, because they're stuck in place. Sometimes when they're stuck in place, we're unwillingly brought into somebody's learning lesson or experience to get them unstuck. And if they don't learn from it and accept it and move on, then something else like a semi-truck comes in.
Right.
And it's a lot worse learning lesson.
It is. It is. And that brings up another point that I have to explain to people. On occasion, it seems they're coming to us for reading when they're down and out, for the most part, usually. And they want us to tell them exactly what to do. Whether, I give them the different options they have, the different scenarios and choices they have, the clear picture of what's going on so that they can clear their head and make a decision for themselves with a clear understanding, knowledge of what's actually going on. But they still want me to tell them which direction to go. And I explain to them, I can't do that. That would make it my lesson. It would
That's correct.
be my life lesson and taking it away from the client. And if they have to redo this lesson, it's going to even be worse and harder on them.
What I usually explain to individuals when they want me, it's very similar to what you said, okay? But I also tell my clients that our past, the old saying was that what we did in the past affects what we do now. In so many words, it does. But if you were good in the past, it doesn't mean that suddenly you've done something in the past that was horrible and it's coming back to get you because of karma, okay? It means that you've gone through learning lessons that you didn't understand back then. You never completed and accepted them and moved on. And so it's come a little bit stronger into this lifetime for you to deal with. And I tell them, regardless of whether you're in the past, your past will affect your present and your future. But these are choices and free will that's connected to you. And me making the choice or Misha making the choice is not going to do it for you. Even if we made the choice for you, you would go through learning lessons and experiences because of your free will. And then you could come back and say, well, we told you to do this and you followed it and it was a bad situation. It would still be your learning lesson. So it's important for you to understand that we cannot take and tell you how to do something. We can give you options and ideas and give you the visions that we're seeing, and it's up to you, the listener and the viewer, to make the choices with your own free will of what you want to do. What we see may not work for you in one vision, but may work for you in another. But you have to make that choice because you are the one that is living the life. You are going through these experiences and learning lessons. And if you graduate from it, then you have a good period of time.
Absolutely. Now, we're down to the last few minutes of the show. I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. And the callers, the viewers haven't called because they're just so thrilled with what you were saying and taking it all in. Had a few thank yous from a few people in the chat room. One of them just said tonight was meant to happen. They knew that they were just had to be here tonight for this show. It's one of the regulars, but they don't make it every single week. So psychically, they were being told they had to be here tonight.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, Misha, and all those that help run this program. I appreciate them very much, too. And to our listeners and viewers, for them to understand that we're all gifted, and it's important for us to use the gifts and abilities with understanding, wisdom, and responsibility. And just because you're not connected to the FBI or law enforcement or advisor to something important, you can make a difference. And please remember that to keep your ethics, your integrity, and your honesty, and that is your greatest reward, and blessings will come to you. Regardless of what faith or religious belief you are, or what type of psychic readings you give, or tarot card readings, or astrology, or palm readings, it's important to be true to yourself and your belief. Absolutely. And to get in touch with Roseanne, you can visit her website, angelicinspirations.com, and have a look at her books as well. And you can find them on her website as well. I did want to say one more thing, Misha. I'm sorry for all the viewers and the listeners that were not able to attend tonight, or the call-ins. There has been a lot of storms raging, so I do apologize for those that could not connect with us. And please send any information to Misha if you have any questions further for me that you wish me to respond to. And I will be glad to, in connection to this show, to follow up through Misha anything that the listeners or those that could not attend want to hear from me.
Absolutely, and we'll discuss setting up maybe for you to come back on a future show if your schedule permits.
Well, thank you very much. That would be truly great and an honor.
And Jason, you should be checking out your books to purchase.
Thank you. And Misha, it's been wonderful connecting with you. Thank you for being a good friend and a good host.
You as well. And they can find you on Facebook, and you can find me on Facebook as well, Tarot by Misha. I'm tarotbymisha.com. And you can find it in the cards on Facebook as well to get updates on the show. With that, everybody try and stay warm now that spring's started, but winter's not letting go. And I'll see you all right back here next Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And in the meantime, come join some of the other shows. Check them out. There's different varieties right here with your near-death experience that you had at such a young age of 6.
Well, it actually started a little bit earlier when there was the area that we lived in. There was a missing child, and I was able to come up with some information. My mother didn't believe in having the information out there publicly, so I always worked behind the scenes. Then my sister and I went swimming in Cedar Rapids River, and we had a near drowning experience, both of us. And during that period of time, I felt like the water was rushing over me. I saw the lights coming. I saw angels and spirits and everything, and it was just really the most wonderful thing. It was so hard for me to go back to reality, and then I'd come back up for air, and then I'd go down, and I kept thinking to myself, this is going to be it. It's over. And I'm not going to see my parents again or my sister or anything like that. And the current was moving us further and further out. We were out with another young girl swimming, and my sister somehow got the strength to push us both towards, there was a boat there, and the other girl grabbed a hold of the boat, pulled herself up onto the land, and went up to her mother, and then they just took off, left us in the water. So we were going up and down in the water, and we were seeing the lights and the angels and different things like that, when suddenly this voice came to me, and it says, don't be scared, relax, we will push you to the edge of the water. And as they were doing that, they were showing us different things of what my future was going to be and how we were going to be working with other individuals and help the world understand that we are all gifted. And in that process, they showed us some of the events and things that was going to go on in my life and how I was going to touch other people's lives in a positive manner. So we did make it up to the shoreline, and we were told not to, when the angel reappeared, we were told not to tell anyone what had occurred because they would not believe us. So it's in my actual stories, in my life stories of the books that I've written.
Well, it's more and more believable now. But back then, those things were not discussed because it would be shoved off as you were, especially at that age. You must have been dreaming, things like that, and just hushed, as you said. Now, what I find interesting with that is you said in the middle of everything going on that you were witnessing, you were also conscious, though, to the physical human aspect of coming up for air, going back under. So you were aware of both of the events then. You weren't like completely unconscious and only viewing the other side.
Yes. During that period of time, it was towards the end where we thought we were done with it. They showed us the scenes of what our future was going to be and future things around us. And
like the Bible Belt.
Yes.
And she'll say, like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do about a situation until God tells me. And yet at the same time, what we do is of the devil. And they don't want to hear that, no. I get my information from God the same place you do. It's just, worded with different terms or whatever, but for whatever, and that's something that always just irks me and drives me nuts. Why is it okay for one and not okay for us? Why? It just aggravates me with that.
I really find that a lot of people, what the situation is everybody has their own beliefs, and there's many ways to path of God, whether you're a Catholic, whether you're a Protestant, whether you're even an atheist. There's many paths. And individuals need to respect and accept that there's going to be other people with views and things. And in your situation, what you were just discussing, the individual picking up a Bible and reading something out that, I tell my clients, I pick up a Bible and I will ask for guidance and direction and pray on the Bible and then open it up and put my finger on a certain passage, and that directs me. That's the guidance and direction. But the psychic gifts and abilities is a development that we all have, whether you call it gut instincts, women's intuitive abilities. It's all part of it. We use it every day in life. And if we don't listen to it, then we go through experiences and learning lessons, which keeps us stuck in our situations where we're not advancing in life or gaining in life.
Yes. Now, do you find it harder to get information when it personally pertains to you as opposed to others?
I do in some cases, but not in all. If I've, for instance, had a really rough day and I haven't done my meditations like I normally do, and I'm really exhausted, then I find that I'm not as close to it. I mean, I'm too close to it, and I'm not reading it correctly. But then there's other times, like when I had text you and let you know that I had this one vision, and I was concerned about what was going to happen on this show. And you gave me some information telling me different things. And you thought that was interesting that I kind of hit on that. And it was an accurate type of thing. That's what I usually do. And when something like that comes, I have to have the information from the other individual in order to make sure it's like a feedback or a confirmation of the situation. And I think I really appreciate you when you did that, because that's what I ask from my clients, is feedback or confirmation that I'm it's regarding them and the situation.
Right. Now, how do you get your information? Some. Hi everybody, welcome to It's in the Cards. Happy spring. It's the first day of spring. You wouldn't know it though, with the weather playing havoc everywhere, with the snow and the cold. But I wore a springy color at least for the first day of spring, but it had to be a sweater because it's cold here tonight. And we're still expecting some snow next week still, too. So we don't want to discuss that. And it's Wednesday. So, of course, we've got winds and bad weather on the way. It seems like that's been the Wednesday night routine all winter this year. Anyway, want to let everyone know that may not. This is a exciting week this week. Monday was the 2-year anniversary of Penn. So want to let everybody know that. And today is Kim's birthday, so happy birthday to Kim. And thanks to Eric for having the station and putting up with me and all the rest of us hosts every single week. and for keeping everything going and all that yous do. Kudos to yous. And happy birthday, Kim. Tonight, I have a very special, lovely guest with me. I'm honored that she was willing to come on this evening. I have Dr. Ann Scwab, and let me give you some background before I bring her on. She is world-renowned clairvoyant psychic medium, and she's a professional consultant. She's been doing it for over 55 years. When she was 6 years old, she had a near-death experience. We're going to discuss that and let her talk about it and tell us all about that. She has worked as an advisor to the White House and U.S. presidents for generations, along with law enforcement and the FBI. She's been tested by law enforcement to be 98% accurate, by the way, as well. She's also an author. I want to welcome Ann Scwab. Hello, Dr. Ann. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Misha. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Well, it's truly my honor.
Everybody likes to hear a background of the guests and how we all got started and what got us into doing what we do. So let's start off.
I said we had an important role to play with the upcoming events. And then the next thing I knew, we were laying on the edge of the water, face down in the sand, and we turned around, and then the angel was there again.
Now, did the angel identify themselves? That it was like Gabriel or Michael or?
This angel said that it was Archangel Michael.
Archangel Michael. That's a lot for a 6-year-old to take in. That's a lot for an adult to take in. And it happens to them. How you knew, even at that age, that you didn't dream it up, that it actually happened?
I've had occurrences all through my life, even as a small child. And at the age of 6, we belong to, my religion is Catholic, and so we belong to the Catholic Church. And they told us that such gifts that I had was the work of the devil and to ignore it. Right. So when I saw the angels and stuff like that, I knew that that was not the devil.
Right, right. So let's go on to that since it's being brought up, because that's a discussion that comes up a lot. There's a lot of people that are afraid of psychics, mediums, tarot readers, anybody that does what you and I do. For that reason, they are still of the belief that, you know, we're all Satan worshippers and performing God knows what we're doing, that they have. Hollywood has a lot to do with that. I know the biggest thing with the tarot cards that I have to explain to people that never had them done is that the death card doesn't mean a physical death. Yes. Because of the Hollywood movies putting up the death card and the music. How do you answer people like that? How do you approach that?
When I talk to individuals that are set on belief of this, there's no way that you can change their mind. And I really believe in not forcing my opinion on someone else, and I respect their opinion, and I ask them in return not to force their beliefs or opinion on me. Because I believe that we were all born with these gifts and abilities, and that it's important for us to use them with understanding, responsibility, and wisdom. Right. And if we can't do it that way, then we shouldn't be using them.
Because I know I have a friend of mine that, you know, what I do does not get discussed at all, you know, which is fine. That's supposed to be discussing her.
Do you have a liquid there, Misha, that you can drink?
I do.
Because it sounds like you need to soften your throat a little bit.
One of the things that always gets me, she's what you described.
Could switching to Geico really save you 15% or more on car insurance? Is the pen mightier than the sword?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.